Anybody read it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not gonna call it out, because my memory's bad.
Yeah.
We're gonna kind of wait for a few minutes till Joe shows up. I guess he's on his way.
What?
Just a few. He's on his way. Oh, maybe. That's Tom, we have.
Okay.
See what mics are on.
Well, are we live or what? What's going on?
Yep,
We are live.
Tom's on, good.
Is Tom there?
Good. I see him.
No.
He's logged in, he's muted, and
No, Tom Sheridan's on.
Okay.
Wait, get it.
Is Clay gonna be here?
No.
I don't know.
How was golf today? Good.
Of course, good.
Tom, can you hear us?
Green's
If you
already
can,
covered.
would you unmute, please, and we can get the meeting started?
He's in the waiting room.
Oh, he's in the waiting.
Who is he?
Yeah, the greens were covered really well, since it was punched a few
Okay.
weeks ago.
Well, I'll,
They were firm today.
I hear we have
Killing.
some, I hear we have
Greens
some,
are looking great.
Yeah, greens are in great shape.
they are,
They're-
yeah,
They're firmed up
they're
today,
firm for
too.
sure.
Man, yeah.
I hear we have some rains
So-
coming though.
So I was planning
I
it,
know.
I'm thinking we might have to turn on the irrigation here soon.
Well, we got rain coming, so.
Yeah, I know, Friday, Saturday and
That'll
Sunday.
save some.
probably just barely sneaking out.
Yeah,
till the rain comes
somebody's
on.
pulling up here,
I let
Sorry,
Max know
Joe.
that.
the young guy.
Thanks, Joe. Last one here, just for the secretary.
Yeah.
I'm right, immediately.
Do you see, I was meeting with Clay yesterday at Clay, I said to Clay, I can't find your minutes. And he said, go back and have somebody take a look at the video from the meeting. I said, oh,
That's where you
great
got
idea.
it, okay.
Who's the
Alright.
president of you guys' board now?
Tony
Tony.
and myself kind
Do
of
they have
co-chair.
the?
Okay.
But Tony's at
agenda?
surgery, so he's.
Bob, you're not the chair?
Yeah, I'm not the chair anymore.
Okay.
I gave that.
Oh,
up.
good, our secretary, right.
Oh, that's good. Oh, was it Stuart?
Yep, last one here is it, so thank you for, volunteering.
Okay, let's go ahead and start the meeting then. Call it to order. Let's do
There
the
you go.
pledge of
There
allegiance,
you
please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Shall we move it up? Police Secretary, Joe, would you be secretary?
Oh, like take minutes?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, yes, I can do that.
So, I'm sorry, move that up. So we need to do a roll call. So, Corey's here,
Here.
Bob,
Here.
Roger, here, Joe,
Yep.
and Tom is still not with us yet?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, Tom, are you with us? Hello, Tom?
Tom, you there?
Looks like his mic's just off.
Tom, your mic is off. There he goes.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right,
All right.
okay. So we have a quorum.
Sorry.
The revised agenda I sent out to everybody this morning. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Revised agenda, approval of the agenda.
I motion that we approve the agenda of
Second.
this year, this month.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We've got our secretary taking minutes for us. Also today, I put together the draft minutes. I wasn't there, but I looked at the video, and so I took these minutes from the video. I don't know whether everybody's had a chance to look at them yet or not. But it was mainly around the preliminary presentation from the consultant on the study they're working on. Lots of good comments from public that was here and the members. And there were a couple specific areas that the consultant was looking for, and I think we tried to provide some feedback at that meeting. And then there was a public meeting held following Friday, and I understand there was pretty good attendance, 25 or 30 people. And hopefully they got some good feedback from that. So can I get an approval of the minutes from the January 2026 meeting?
Move to approve.
Second? Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Public participation? Any public? Action items. The first action item we want to talk about was timeline for consultant study and approved additional, the third 9-hole to study. And I guess I'll start off by saying, at the February board meeting, there was some discussion about whether or not the third 9 was part of the study that's going to be done. And I think it's specifically, they were asked about that, and it was, from what I understand now, it's been added to the study so that the financial piece and the operation piece of that will all be part of the study. And the staff has approved the consultant's additional charge for doing that. Is that, did I get that correct?
Correct.
Good, okay. Timeline, does anybody want to talk about the timeline, or was there, I heard some concerns about the timeline for the study. Is there, anybody have some,
So can I ask a clarification? Sorry.
okay,
Just back to the previous topic. These
Sure.
are kind of two topics. So is a consultant now addressing the third 9, or how? I'm sorry. What did you just say?
okay. I think it was not clear whether or not the study was going to include the third 9 or whatever. Maybe Casey has a,
They are working on both the third 9 and the Clubhouse together and separately. So
The plan
the plan
originally was to do them together.
was to do them together, but somehow that didn't happen. So we added that in February's board meeting, I believe, and they're currently looking at different scenarios, like if you did the Clubhouse, would it stand alone? Would it stand alone if you did the third 9? Would it stand alone together? That's kind of what they're working on. And we have something in draft form, but it's not complete, and probably won't be complete until the next board meeting, where they're going to present it to the board.
Next meeting, next month, board meeting, or this coming board meeting?
Hopefully this month.
Good. Can't wait.
okay, so any other discussion about the timeline and the third 9 part of the study?
So they're going to present to the board. So should we attend that meeting, or are we going to get a? Could we get a preview of it? I think before it was presented to the board last time.
It's my understanding we will not get a preview, but we are encouraged to attend
It's-
the board meeting.
Yeah, it's in draft form, so,
Okay.
and it's not complete yet, so.
You know, and the board packet and the information to the board comes out about 6 days before the board meeting. So,
Almost, at least a week.
okay, but I don't think the public can see it at least 6 days before the board meeting. So
Yep.
I would encourage you to go on to the website, CPRD website, download, take a look at the agenda and take a look at the board packet, because it has all the details, and hopefully the consultant's report or pieces of it will be in the board packet.
It was scheduled for our last board meeting, but 2 days before I was notified to take it off the agenda because they weren't ready. So my expectation and my hope is that it's gonna be at this meeting.
Okay. Good. Any further discussion on it? Okay. We've been talking about the last few meetings about what do we think the next steps after we see delivery of the consultant's report? And questions came up, as, you know, how can the committee assist the board in the decision and timeline for action process. Is there any discussion about that? Thoughts about that?
That depends on the financing. Whether the district assumes a loan for that or a bond. We may need to get a lot of community support for something like that, as Jim did in the Aquatic Center. That's gonna be a tough one, because with our surveys that we did last fall, the golf course wasn't high on the priority list. That's part of the reason for this feasibility study, is to make sure that it includes the whole community and not just the golf course. As Jason had said earlier, you know, it has to be economical to operate, but it does need to serve the larger community. So that's kind of what we propose to the architects to kind of come up with. And through all the feedback that we got from our public meetings that we did and the meetings that we had with different officials, the pre-application with the city, generally it would allow for the clubhouse, and there are certain parameters that, you know, they're looking for. Parking is a big one. So it's gonna be a tight, even with the space that we're putting in there for a clubhouse. And from all the feedback, we went with a mid-size, but they still increased the size on it a little bit to accommodate a bigger kitchen. And I think the meeting room stayed the same. You'll see a picture of it when I have a few slides too.
Okay. So what's the committee, do you have any thoughts about how we might be able to help, or things we ought to be looking at to help the board in the process?
Well, I think that's one of my hopes, was just to sit down today and ask, the county, what can we do to help with the next steps? And I think one of the questions I have about next steps, I know Clay's not here, and he's probably because he's doing a lot of budget stuff right now. Is there anything in the budget for kind of penciling out for if there are some next steps this year after the feasibility is complete? Preliminary architecture or fundraising or whatever? Like, I guess my question is, we get the feasibility study, and I'm assuming, we're on a fiscal year budget here, July to June. So if that comes out in August, are we gonna have to wait until June next year before there's any funds for whatever the next steps are?
Well, it's gotta go through a type 2 land use, and then there's permitting. So I'm gonna assume, and Clay didn't put anything in the budget specifically this year, because he hasn't had the numbers yet for, this is gonna tell us how much it's gonna be, and we don't have those numbers yet. So that'll probably get added, and I would assume that not a lot's gonna get done next year with all the other projects that we have wrapping up. So I think, and I don't know what Clay thinks, but it's gonna be a year or two down the road.
To just get it on the budget, or to?
No, to start, doing the land use and the permitting and stuff, because those permits run out. So you gotta make sure you have enough funds to go through the whole thing. That'll give you guys a couple of years to figure out how to pay for this, or the board to pay for it, or Clay, or whoever.
Clay will pay for it?
Somebody with deep pockets, maybe there'll be a magic donor somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a case in the Boise area where someone gave a fairly large donation to a new clubhouse that they did out there, but I'm pretty sure that's as rare as could be.
So just follow up on that, are you saying that without something like that, then trying to get this?
Nope, that's not what I mean. That would be helpful, but yeah. And we haven't talked to our we have someone that we've used in the district previous to this that has done bonds and loans and things to build out the existing golf course, and, you know, that discussion is yet to be had.
So it's not off the table, it's just never been discussed. Is that what I hear?
We're waiting for this.
What the cost? The feasibility study?
Yeah, we don't have a final cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of leads us into the next item. On Monday night, Tuesday night, the Budget Committee met and reviewed the proposed budget for 26-27. And in that is a kind of a projection of projects that will be worked on over the next 5 years. And the clubhouse and the third nine were not in that projection. They have been in previous budgets. So during the meeting, I expressed my concern about that being dropped off because, you know, we think it is a feasible project and we think it ought to be in the planning out there, and it's always been in there for like year 2027 and beyond, but it was not there. And what I heard Clay say was that he had looked at all the proposed projects, resources, money-wise, and he basically said, we're full for the next 5 years of projects that are already being approved and being in the process. The golf course and the clubhouse is not one of those projects. So he left it out of the budget.
He was the one that made the decision to leave it out, is that what,
Well, I don't know who, it was staff decided, staff.
not the board?
Well, staff puts together the budget,
Okay.
and they bring it to the budget committee, the budget committee reviews it, approves it, now it goes on to the board, and they're gonna have a meeting in early May, a public meeting on it, and then with the idea of approval of the budget at their May meeting. So that's the, kind of the timeframe for approval of the 26-27 budget.
Until we have any kind of numbers, anything to look at, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You know what I mean? I understand from your guys' perspective, on the other side of that table, it makes a lot of difference. But we have to have an idea, what are we working with? And we're gonna look at all the projects that we have and all the dollars that we have to spend, and then the board will talk about what are our priorities gonna be.
Granted, I have been hearing that ever since we got into this committee. And it's kind of heartbreaking to hear that even though we worked 2 years into this, gathering information, delivering it to the staff and the board, and waiting for the architectural firm to be accepted and providing information for feasibility study, RFP was given. And before we even hear it, now it's off the table. That is not what I was hoping for or expecting.
Well, I will tell you that was the entire board. We were all surprised that it wasn't on there as well, because we have nothing to do with putting the budget together.
And that was my discussion with Clay, is that if we as a committee are concerned about that we actually provide testimony to the board during their process to express our concerns about this not being a 5-year project, because it has been in the past. The dollars have always been in there, the 5 million, whatever it is. And I realize we don't know what the exact number is, but we've always had an estimate in our 5-year plan. I'm not sure why that couldn't just continue on with the number we've been using for a number of years. I mean, Clay and I looked back, and I believe it was in the 22-23 budget, 23-24 budget, 24-25 budget. And we didn't have the 25-26 budget, but I'm pretty sure it was in there too. So that number and those projects have been in there for the last at least 4 years. So,
So I just want to make sure I understand. So the board does not approve the budget?
We approve the
Okay.
budget.
Okay.
We don't build the budget.
Right.
We can modify the budget.
Okay.
But we don't, the initial budget that's put together.
Right.
The board does not build that budget.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done by staff and
So when that's finalized, it'll come to the CPRD board for approval.
Correct.
Okay, so you,
Please understand that there's other projects that were left off too. It wasn't just this
Oh.
one. And, you know, we're looking at the number of dollars, and we're not sure what the dollars are. I mean, we can always go back even mid-year and bring the budget committee back in and relook at things. If this comes in at a number that, you know, let's say it's 14 million, which is a possibility. You know, then we have to say, okay, well, how are we gonna finance this, or are we gonna get the money to pay that money back? Those are all things that we have to think about, so until we have that number, or at least an idea, you know, it's like any other business, you gotta see if it pencils out, and then we can look at it as a budgetary item. So, that's kinda where we're at, we're not wanting it, we just wanna make sure that we do it correctly. And that's, I think, what Clay was looking at. So, that's kinda where I stand.
Yeah,
Do you have any input?
I'm pretty sure that Clay didn't put any numbers in there because he wasn't comfortable just throwing a dart when he's got a feasibility study that's.
exactly, that is understandable.
Don't be surprised that it gets added after. I mean, there's still meetings to discuss. But it probably won't be anything on this year's budget.
So,
It'll have to be planned for.
it's on. Can we do a proposal here? The recommendation?
You recommend things to the
For
board.
committee action? Yes.
No, it's a question that I would like to see answered to, from either the staff or the board of directors. And that is, can we separate the two projects? We've talked about this before. Oh,
That's what this feasibility study is looking at. What's viable, what works, and what doesn't work. So you can't just say, that's what these guys are doing. They're finding out if one's gonna work without the other, which one it would be if it worked with the other one. Does it all work together? So that's what they're trying to determine. So to ask that question before this is kind of, you'll get the answer when they're done.
okay.
I understand that the construction of the clubhouse in the third nine is not an item for the 26-27 budget. And I understand that, because there's too many unknowns and all kinds of things that have to be done. But the concern is, the 5-year plan, from my understanding, is used to determine the SDC rate that is charged. So with that project being out of there, that reduces the budget for SDC projects in the future, is that correct?
We're not gonna have much of an SDC fund left after our current projects. We only receive approximately $320,000 a year from SDCs as an average.
But it's based upon expected future needs.
It's based upon expected future needs, and that's another study that they're looking into this year. So,
By dropping off the golf course, then, that is not then in the future needs budget.
you're getting ahead of yourself.
Right, we haven't said anything about dropping anything.
No,
It's basically, we wanna know the numbers and then we can put it in the budget appropriately. So, that's kinda where we're at. I mean, if all of a sudden let's say it's 10 million and then they say you've got a 7% interest on that money. You know, we're gonna have to look at stuff like that, it's just like any other thing, so we're looking at, we need to see those numbers, even for the STC rate. And then look at, are we gonna do this or not? The board hasn't made a decision whether they're going to do this or not, because we don't know what it's gonna cost, or whether we can afford it, and that's kind of where we're at, and if it pays for itself. I mean, we could always go to the public and ask them for a bond. That's possible, but it's been turned down twice. So you'd have to do a
Yeah,
real.
so,
a real
so the question I've
discussion.
got, so to build the first 18 holes, right? We didn't use, I don't believe, any SDC fees and that type of stuff.
We did.
We did, we did, okay. And to what, I guess where I'm going with this just is, okay, we did use some SDC fees and that type of stuff, but the majority of the course was paid through revenue bonds,
Correct.
correct? And so where does that play into this? Because I mean, if we go into the public to ask for money for Clubhouse and another 9, that's going nowhere. That's a complete waste of our time.
Oh, it's a waste.
Well, revenue bonds are paid back through funds from the district, not just from the golf course. So what that did was take money out of the general fund that we use to maintain our parks. Yes, it does provide extra revenue during periods that we didn't normally have it, but it's not really, doesn't provide any more revenue than what it costs to operate the golf course. It didn't provide enough revenue to pay the bonds or the loans for front or back 9.
So Casey, were you here when the first revenue bond for the first 9 was taken out? Were you part of the CPRD at that time?
I was the golf course superintendent. I was not, I met the finance guy and did have some discussions with him, with Dawn.
Okay.
And I think Jim was involved,
Were you?
but I don't know.
No, I wrote one of the contracts, but I wasn't involved in that fiscal information.
Okay, so if you, do you recall if there was any problems with the funding for the, from the public at that point? Because we'd already tried a tax bond, and that was denied. I heard. It's been a long time since I could remember that.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so I'm just curious, because if it happened once, why can't it happen again? Getting it funded, you know what I mean?
Those are questions
I'm asking the wrong person, I
Yep,
know that,
I
but
can't answer those questions.
I know that.
And I think it's all part of this feasibility study that we're gonna be seeing from the consultant, so. I agree, we're close, we're very close to having a lot of these answers,
Right.
but we don't have them.
Even a company that's going to basically, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and support your revenue bond, it's a company, some company comes in, a bank, or whatever, they're gonna look at all our assets, they're gonna make sure we can do it. It's not just like here you go, here's your money.
They're gonna ask for this study.
They're
They're gonna ask for
everything, and so
revenues for
that's-
the last 10
That's a
years.
whole nother
Yeah.
ballgame that's out of my range.
Sure. Jim needs a mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought my coaching voice would work.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Sorry, I apologize.
Well, anyway. That's all I got to say.
So does the committee think that we ought to provide testimony before the board meetings to kind of express our concern about the dropping of the clubhouse and the third 9 from the 5-year plan? Even though I understand there's a lot of reasons for it, but they've had an estimate, the number for the last 4 or 5 years that they've used in that process. I guess we would support continuing that number until the actual numbers can be plugged in, but that number that we've used over the last 4 or 5 years should be, in my opinion, should be continued to stay in the 5-year plan, in the budget.
So what you're saying is you would want it in there as a reassurance that it is still something that is considered just as like a peace of mind rather than.
And the actual number could be plugged in when we know what they are. But the whatever number we've been using over the last 4 or 5 years should continue to stay in the budget for the 5-year plan.
Well, I mean, you guys have been doing this a lot longer than I have, so I have to ask, like, is the feasibility study, is that the furthest along that you guys have ever gone along in a process for the clubhouse?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what we were put in place to do.
Yeah. So that's a circumstance where if it's not in the budget because they're trying to figure out how much money it is, then that's where I can understand this one time it not being on the budget because over the last 5-10 years, how long you've been doing this, we never got to this point. So I see it kind of both ways where it's like a circumstance that, well, it's not on there because we're actually going to get a real dollar amount here to see if it's possible and then we can put it back on. But I also understand, where you guys have been a long time saying, oh yeah, no, we're considering it. It's not, no, we haven't gotten rid of it. We haven't dropped it. And just kind of keeps getting pushed along. So I understand both sides of it. I can't tell you one way or another. I think that if you want to go to the board and express that concern, I'd obviously support it, but I can see the sentiment that they have and why it's not included there. I can't understand that, so.
When does the CPRD board approve the budget, the proposed budget?
At their May
I
meeting.
believe it's in May.
Yeah, their May meeting.
So one thought, this isn't a motion, it's one thought, so there's new information tonight, first of all, so thank you for meeting, because I didn't know that the feasibility contractor was willing to take on that third night. What I heard is that wasn't what we were asked to do, we didn't do it. That's what I remember in January or whenever we had that last meeting. So hearing that now, I'm kind of reassured to know that they're gonna, what I'm thinking they're gonna come back with is like, here's a full package deal, which might be some astronomical number of 14 million or 10 million, or whatever, for the third nine for the clubhouse and everything. But I'm hoping that they're also gonna break that down to, here's what it's gonna cost just to do the clubhouse, and here's what it's gonna do the third nine. And in my opinion, the clubhouse is what's gonna be more support for the community, right? That's where we're gonna draw in non-golfers and stuff like that. So if that number is fairly reasonable, then I would like to be able to make the recommendation to the board before their May meeting of, we'd like to see this part move forward, and table the third nine for now, and then we can get back into that 5-year plan. But I'd see both sides. It does kind of feel like we got the cold shoulder there, just got kicked out of the 5-year plan. And we don't want to lose that traction. I always kind of thought, I don't know how we're gonna do the two projects together. Those are huge projects. I think if you were able to get the clubhouse done, which is gonna support more of the community, generate more revenue, and help pay for the third nine later, that's my thought. So if that's what, Casey, you guys believe to happen from the consultant, that we might get not just one number, but 3, package deal, and then parsed out the clubhouse and third nine.
You're correct. That's all I'm gonna say.
So then maybe we can make a motion if you guys want to, but I would think we attend the board meeting on the 23rd, hear the consultant's presentation, and then meet after that, before the May CPRD board meeting, and come up with a more formal recommendation.
Okay, I think that's a good, looking at my calendar, our next scheduled meeting would be on the 14th of May. It's the second Thursday. And I believe the board meeting, which they will review and approve the budget, is the 28th of May. And sometime before that will be a public meeting. The board will have a public meeting about the budget, but does anybody know what that date is?
Not offhand, no.
But even if it appears, if we don't do it at the public meeting, we would be able to meet our timeline to be able to presentation at the May 28th CPRD meeting. So does that sound like a good
We will have numbers.
discussion? We'll have some numbers, and then we
Yeah.
can really advocate for addition or putting it back in.
I would probably go as far as to recommend a special meeting on the 30th, so that if we do make that recommendation, that gives Clay and his team time to kind of work out those numbers, and possibly, potentially adjust their proposed budget before May 28th.
What do you mean by work out the numbers?
So if instead, like, what I thought I hear is kind of like, we're just tabling it for 26, 27 altogether, because we don't have numbers.
Right.
And if we feel like just the clubhouse in itself is doable within the, it could be financed in some way, some fashion or way in 26, 27, or at least to start it. I think the sooner that Clay and his team has that information, then they might be able to adjust the budget before the May 28th meeting when it's approved.
I'm pretty sure that it's not gonna make it in this year's budget.
No, I think we're proposing is not in this year's budget, but to put back into the 5-year plan.
I'm
Is that what I'm
sure,
hearing?
I'm
Well-
sure that can be done, yes.
Well, I have to, I'm not very familiar with the next steps. The next steps may just be architectural design, in which, you know, not the actual construction part, but maybe a small piece of whatever the clubhouse costs are. Can we get that process moving in 26, 27 instead of waiting a whole nother year before we take another step forward?
I can tell you from what I heard Clay talk about at the budget committee meeting is that this budget is very tight. They've asked staff to pare back programs, to pare back, how did she describe it? Julie described it as do less with little or something. I forgot how she described it at the meeting, but it was, the budget's very tight for 26, 27. And things have been cut. So without some form of additional revenue, it would be a tough decision by staff and the board to add additional money or proposals in the 26, 27 budget. That's what I gathered from the meeting, the board meeting, when I was there.
So, are there any other recommendations in the room for how to, I guess, get back into the 5-year plan? I hate to see a lot of time go by after we get more firm numbers, if the report is finalized on April 23rd.
Casey, what do you think, if it comes back and it looks positive, it looks like it's feasible, there's lots of different things that have to be dealt with as far as financing and stuff, there would be a number of steps that have to be done, and you mentioned this, the permitting process, the land use planning, that process will take quite a bit of time, but how much money do you expect something like that would cost?
Well, I'll remind you that you have a surcharge down at the golf course. So every year there's money gets added to the bucket. That money can be used for the development, for architectural or permitting or whatever you guys, whatever we decide to do. I don't know why Clay didn't put it in the 5-year plan, because the whole feasibility study was based on the next, I wanna say, back up to 2030. So we will have costs from 27 to 30. This is what it's gonna cost here, this is what it's gonna cost here. The economy is important, the interest rates are important. Everything's, that's a big project, there's a lot of costs there. And we have only so many funds. Oregon has a tax that doesn't increase but 3% per year. And we only have so much development in the local economy. And that's gonna restrict that type of funding. We have a lot of aging infrastructure in the district that we're trying to replace. And we're trying to replace it. That's where those cuts came in. We wanna do as much as we can to replace some things that are 30 years old and perhaps unsafe, and make sure that everyone, I think that's a big feature of our park district right now is safety. We've got a lot of things that you can't replace anymore because they just don't make them. So Clay's budget is very tight, and staff was asked to reduce some things and look over their budget really well so that we didn't waste anything. we are going ahead with a lot of replacements. We're trying to ask the community for support through Rotary, through Kiwanis, through, and we just got another grant to kind of upgrade a facility that we have. We got $1 million grant from the state for Rennie Park. There's plenty of things going on. It's not like we're not trying. But when you have this many projects, especially big projects, like the Sanders Estate, $3.5 million. You've got the bypass trail that we're working on, that's $4 million. It makes the budget tight.
Do you have any idea how much money is in that surcharge fund left after the
No, I don't.
consultant?
I don't involve myself in I'm gonna guess you guys had 160 when we started, and that was from a year? So there's probably another 130, 140 in there, I'm guessing.
But I would assume that has been allocated somewhere in the budget.
No,
already.
it's allocated for the golf course development. That's what it's allocated
So
for.
it's a pot that's been
It's
set
got its
aside
own
for this.
Got
separate
its own
revenue
number
line,
on it.
so we can look quickly and find out exactly how much that is.
Okay.
There's a lot of discussion back when that started of how to make that right, so we know exactly how much that amount is, not tied to greens fees.
So is that money controlled strictly by CPRD or the board of directors?
The board and the superintendent.
So are there any funds available to do small jobs that CPRD does not have to go to the board to do?
What do you mean?
Well,
That's what our staff do. They make choices and they spend their funds that they budget for.
So I guess I'm not making myself clear.
No.
I mean, if there's $130,000 that's sitting in the, that line item, is that available for CPRD to use at their discretion? Or does it always have to go to the board of directors to get approval?
Is there a certain amount it has to be to?
That, yes, I don't think we have that set policy, but superintendent can authorize up to a certain amount, and then it needs to go to the board. And I can't tell you what that number is, but.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It was 10,000.
It's, yeah, it's more than
I
that.
think it's 10.
We just increased it.
Yeah.
But I don't imagine Clay or anybody else is gonna be spending any money out of that unless it's golf course related.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it won't be.
If somebody wants to go get a
Nobody's gonna be buying.
We get audited every year, and if it goes missing from that fund, they better have some good receipts on it, because they'll find it.
thank you.
So,
I have some pictures to show you guys.
okay, so I think then that may be an option. So are we talking about maybe having a special meeting then on April 30th? I just want to jump a little ahead. So can I schedule that in or would
I
the
would
slides have?
I would have a conversation if I were you with Clay. to
Okay.
See how he wants to do that.
Okay, good. So I will take that on, talk to Clay and see about doing a special meeting and then get back and get kind of a vote. And otherwise, we'll get down to it. Great, thank you. Thank you, and I appreciate the comments, and I think there's some great creative ideas there. Appreciate that. Okay. Casey, you want to do the slides now?
Sure. Richard, do you want to pull those slides up? Thank you. I made a big thing, but I've already spent too much time on this.
Boy, do I know that.
So,
feeling.
this is about feasibility study, and this is kind of part of it. So, we're just gonna move along. Richard, do you wanna, these are things that we decided on as, committees and public meetings and things like that. This is what we've kind of decided on for what the look of the clubhouse would be. Thanks, Richard.
Tom, can you see these slides?
And, yep.
As
Okay.
soon as Richard gets his screen
Yeah.
off the table.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, Richard. Yes, I'm ready. So Ankrum Moisan was commissioned to do, click the link. I don't have a link.
Technology.
Oh, okay. Tap to load the preview. Okay. This is new to me. Okay. Highlight. He didn't show me how to use it, he just sent it to me. There we go. So this is kind of the location that we came up with, and it's all numbered there. Shows the parking area, the expansion of the parking area, the drop-off for the clubhouse area, the forecourt, the clubhouse, the event pavilion, the cart barn, what else is there? Cart barn, the staging area, the kind of event lawn area, like for little concerts or whatever. The partially covered driving range. And there was talk of heaters, and this all comes up with costs. So those things are being looked into. The necessity to put another putting green in, and probably leave the putting course as is, and also a chipping green.
This is very similar to what was
Yep,
proposed.
it is.
Yes.
So this is kind of what we came up with, a final layout, and it is 3,740 square feet. I think that's up about 400 square feet from the initial one. So it includes, I want to say, 55 indoor seats for the restaurant, similar outside, and there is an upper level on the outside, a balcony type area. You'll see that going forward. Restrooms are all located so that they can be used from the event pavilion, from the outside, or from the inside. And access to the restaurant's pretty direct, and access to the pro shop's really direct with, so if you want to go to the restaurant, you don't necessarily have to go through anything to get in there. The kitchen's kind of off by itself, with really good access to the event pavilion and service of the tables.
Do you know what direction this is? Where's north, south?
You'll see in the pictures.
Okay, thank you.
Roughly north.
North is, where it says clubhouse, it's pretty much directional, north, south, east, west. That would be the entrance coming up to the clubhouse, the drop-off area, and the forecourt around it's kind of we tried to keep it agricultural related, but modern. And we not purposely, but we looked at one angle roof on it, and it didn't really fit the area. And we can actually put solar panels on this one on the south side, if that would help. So that's that part. That would be the south side of
That's nice.
the clubhouse, with the event tent on the far end and pro shop on this end. And we talked to some people that run restaurants, and they felt that that wasn't adequate. The kitchen was adequate, the serving area was adequate, the event area was adequate. The whole reason for bringing the community together is to get people to use the golf course more, the putting course more, the putting greens, the practice areas. And that kind of, as a feasibility, you know, that brings more people and they spend more money if they're there longer, so. And there's meeting space available for community meetings or whatnot.
Can I ask a question? So on the upstairs, is that only accessible from outside?
Yes,
Okay.
yep,
And then the event pavilion is on the far left, I believe, right?
far left.
And we had some initial discussions of maybe not finishing that off since the current tent has, I think, 10 or 12 years left on it. Do you know if the consultant will maybe give us a number just for that part of the building in case we don't want to finish that off right away?
Well, that's a good possibility because, the pad needs to be poured anyway.
Yes, no, I brought that up, I think, in January or last year.
So
Just
when you
good
pour
pad.
when you pour the pad, you need to have a design on top of it so that when you do.
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
It all needs to work, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking the construction cost of that part of the building, if we want it, because I thought we were trying to use that tent for a few more years, just to save costs on building that part.
Casey, so the cart barn is behind that pavilion area?
Correct.
You can't see it?
Oh,
Okay,
no,
there you
yeah.
go, okay. Thank you.
That's kind of a relative relationship between the clubhouse and the golf course. So, kind of an overview of the whole thing. And yes, there's a lot of concrete, but there's a lot of use, and, you know, it's a great place to gather, it's a great for all the community. I live in the Oaks, and it takes me 5 minutes to walk there. So, there's a lot of properties within 5 minutes of the golf course. There's also lots of places that you drive in Newburgh at least a mile to get to. I mean, if I go downtown, it's a mile. So I don't see, this is a good question for you, Count. How many golfers do we get from out of town? What's a percentage?
Out of, what do you mean by out of town? Out of Newburgh?
Yeah,
Non-residents?
out of
Out of town?
20%,
Probably
30?
30 to 35%.
Wow.
So there are people that drive quite a ways to play golf, especially serious golfers. I think, and that's just another view, a little bit. Use of the areas that are
Wow.
being,
You know if that's open doors or,
they're open, but you can use garage doors to close it up, or, you know, security glass doors.
okay,
You could provide heating and cooling in there if you wanted to. So that's the thought, is to make sure that it's, whatever you want to do in the future, you can do it and not have to rebuild the building.
The current plan is to have them open. There won't be garage doors or anything. Yeah.
And that's pretty much my notes. We did hold, there's a couple more things that I should let you know. At this stage of the design development, the project has been designed in accordance with the structural safety code as adopted by the city of Newburgh. We held a pre-application with the city of Newburgh. The current design has been evaluated at a high level for compliance with building code requirements, including occupancy, classification, construction type, building height and area, and means of egress strategy. Design incorporates ADA requirements in the planning of accessible routes, public spaces, and guest accommodation. That meeting was held March 25th, so got a lot of information from the city. What's required, there might be some, this project just keeps on giving to you, you know. And there are certain things that we may have to talk to the city about as far as what that triggers with, you know, the roadways and things like that. So, a lot remains to be determined.
Somebody brought up a concern about parking. What was that concern?
We're looking for parking. You know, we only have 18 holes. If we go to 27, that's a whole different story. And the rules have changed. I don't, you know, we currently use part of what used to be the Worth family's property, but that's all purchased by ODOT. So we're losing use of some properties that we had available to us. We can certainly, you know, reach out to PCC, and they have lots of parking over there on weekends and things like that, but that's not for every day. So.
But after ODOT finishes, we may be able to build underneath them and around them, right? Parking lot. No, I mean, right? I mean, it's not really prime real estate anymore when it's a bypass, so I would think that parking might be an option. I hate to lose that field for people that use that.
You can talk to
but-
ODOT.
Well, those look great, and thank you, and that's, to me, that's a win, just knowing what progress you made with the city stuff. You check those boxes, so that's good to know, so
Yeah.
thank you.
I agree.
Okay.
Great, yes, thank you. Kind
I
of
can
on
share
down,
with- I can share with you real quick on the city, is when we built the aquatic center, we had a lot of discussion on parking. It was not an easy discussion. They kept taking parkland for parking. So, and also, we had to redo all of Cherry Street behind the center that we weren't really using, but they said we had, so things come up that I wasn't ready for, that we had to do. And I assume that, I'm hoping it doesn't, but.
We already put $1 million in Fernwood.
Yeah, we put Fernwood Road in, so that's,
Frontage
Yeah.
improvements, they call them.
turn lanes, things like that. It's kinda out of our hands, whatever they're gonna say, code requires this. Then we have to dig into that, and that's just more money, so we need to find out all those things ahead of time.
great. Then that kind of goes down into the expected timeline for decision-making process. Is there any, can liaisons or staff give us any insight into that?
I don't think we're gonna know anything until we have.
A week ago, they said 3 weeks, so.
But after, I guess what I'm looking is after the report's delivered, does the board have any kind of insight about what expectations or kind of process-wise might occur?
I'm sure they're gonna wanna study it.
And then they might ask for a staff recommendation at that point.
Casey, your mic's off, so they can't hear you.
Okay, and I think we've kind of kicked around the idea of the clubhouse and the third nine, whether or not they need to be built simultaneously or sequenced or something, and so that's just kind of, again, part of the study process, I think, is what we found out. Any new business? Oh, I kind of cut off. Is there any other comments or discussion from staff or board liaisons?
Yeah, I have something. One of the things that I'd like you to consider is starting to look outside the box a little bit. You're asking for total public funding of this, and I get that. But when we done a lot of projects here, I'll give you an example. When we did Friends Park, I asked the contractor that I knew, can you come in, would you be willing to pro bono and do all of the earthwork and underground work? He said, sure. That was a $207,000 hit right there that they gave to us. And then I took that money and I matched it with a grant from the state and got another $270,000. So in theory, the district got a park that they couldn't afford to pay for out of their pocket, but they got it. So in other places, they have naming rights. You know, you're gonna name a room, or you're gonna name a whatever, and it's gonna cost $250,000 to name that room. Now, to a lot of people, that's a lot of money, but to some people, that is not a lot of money, and if you never ask, you never get. And so most of the district facilities around here have not been strictly paid for by the taxpayer. They've been basically had donations given to them. Sanders Park's a good example. Shad Park's another good example. Part of the aquatic center, some things were donated there. Cultural center was a big one with a lot of money. So Casey alluded to Boise, and I went to that facility, looked at it, it's really nice. And this will be really nice. But someone said, look, I want to kickstart this, and gave the city of Boise $3 million to kickstart it. That helps, folks. It helps with the public also looking at that. Saying, oh, it's not all our money, you got these donated, that's great. People look at that. So I'm just bringing that out for you to look outside the box and maybe start spreading the word and maybe start thinking about some of these rooms. Because we've done that throughout the district before. And I know the cultural center did that too. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. What do you think about it?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Those are great ideas. I mean, speaking for myself, like, I wouldn't know where to start that. And I guess, do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, a lot of it's just the ask, or people we're really trying to find money for this golf course, and there's this guy that's a golfer that's just like a golfing addict. And he also owns a high-tech company that you didn't know about, that you were out there golfing with him. Hey, yeah, I'd like to give to this. Can I write it off? I mean, and that's all out there. But you just have to ask. So anyway, that's kind of how you start the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, great, appreciate that. Casey, do you have something else?
Corey, you just need to start by looking in your bank account and
I could buy one screw at the bench.
Just think of it this way, it's the only opportunity you get to get money while you're playing golf.
yeah.
You guys did give me a good excuse
Yeah.
to play more golf, so thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Next meeting? Oh, let's see. Oh, I guess we got, next meeting is the, I think it's May 14th is just second Thursday in May, but potentially one at the end of April. But if we'll set the next meeting for May 14th, but then a special meeting potentially for April 30th. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, the
30th.
30th if you're gonna talk to Clay.
30th or 31st? What is, May?
What do you want to talk to Clay about? I'm just
April
curious
30th.
if maybe you just set the meeting and,
I think we talk, make sure facilities available and that kind of stuff too.
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
And I think a lot of it is, if I'm hearing you guys correctly, we're anticipating getting the final report before the next CPRD board meeting. If we don't, then having that meeting on the 23rd, or excuse me, the 30th is probably not the best use of our time. But we should know by next week, right? Because that's to be usually in the board packet a week in advance.
When was that renditions given to you?
Last week,
Yeah, they're really nice.
So at least they've done that, and
like I said, it's in draft form, but it's not.
Okay. Any additional comments from the committee members?
Thank thank you to our new secretary.
Yeah. I got some typing to do.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming, appreciate staff and the board being here, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, thank you.